So it's possible they could push the stock market back up by printing never-ending amounts of money. But that doesn't actually solve the fundamental problem, which is our currency is being destroyed. The American people are having their savings robbed from them to pay for bailouts to bankers and to mega corporations and to international bankers. So, I think this needs to be viewed as what it is, and that is one of the largest heists in the history of mankind. This is a looting operation. It's no different than if they came into your house with a shotgun and emptied out your safe. That's functionally what they're doing, just minus the violence. They're just doing it by deception, and we need to call them out on it.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and today is part 2 of my interview with Alex Newman of The New American. If you didn't see part 1 yet, we're going to have a little button appear in the upper right there, so you can click it. I don't know if it pointed to the right side or not, but Alex talked about a lot of the things with coronavirus that I've found rather stunning that I'm guessing most people aren't aware of, so you'll definitely want to check that out. But in part 2 now, we dig into the financial markets, some of the things he's seeing, which are rather stunning. So with that said, enjoy. Speaking of JP Morgan and our glorious economy, well, we have a few minutes left. Would love to switch over to that. I mean, where to begin? As you just mentioned, the Fed printing, they can't even, they want to print so much, they can't even put a number on it. So we had to go unlimited. You couldn't even say like $1 trillion a month or, of course, God only knows what is the real numbers. I'm going to lay out a scenario and tell me if this seems far-fetched. Again, we've talked a bit about how a lot of these things are planned well in advance. So to be clear, I don't have any fact to support this, just something that popped into my mind. But today is April 21st. So we're hearing dates of this opening May 1st, or, we're not talking about 2022. So at least here sounds like we're moving towards opening things up, which if now we're in April, the election still several months off, the Fed is printing unlimited. And I would say unless Trump got caught in like he had lied about the whole coronavirus or something like that, which I'm not saying I think or is happening, it would almost seem that just from the way that if we're back in any semblance of living normal life, the way people rallied after September 11th, where, it seems to me set up, especially then if the Fed prints enough, which to me, it seems like someone makes a decision. Do we want to print enough so the stock market could well be higher at new all-time highs by the election? So any thoughts on that? Am I just completely imagining it all? Or is it at least like one plausible scenario of how this plays out where, October, November, we're all, cheering, and yet what slipped in is all the money printing and other stuff. But thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very real possibility, Chris. And, a lot of people are looking at the coronavirus as the cause of the economic meltdown. And I think the coronavirus was more the trigger, but the problem was baked into the system already. I mean, during the 2008 crisis, they never actually solved the problem, right? They just did a smaller version of what they're doing right now. Print endless amounts of money, buy all kinds of assets, create a bunch of front groups, hand a bunch of money to the mega bankers, and let them go out and buy a bunch of assets. And see, that doesn't actually deal with the underlying problem, which is we have an unstable, dishonest monetary system designed, whoa, bird just crashed into my window, to fleece the American people. And once you understand the way the Federal Reserve System works, you realize, wait a minute, this didn't have everything to do with the coronavirus. And yeah, the small businesses that are being crushed, that's happening because of the coronavirus. But the market implosion, the unstable nature of our economic system has 100% to do with the monetary system, with the corrupt Federal Reserve. And so what they did during the last economic crisis, 2008, they call them, and I hate how they use all these complicated terms just to try to confuse people. And, nobody wants to sound stupid. So what does that mean, right? But they're creating special purpose vehicles to inject liquidity into the economy. This is just a bunch of gobbledygook nonsense. What they're doing is they're printing cash out of nothing, funneling it through front companies that they created to buy up assets and to prop up asset prices in sectors of the economy that they want to prop up, whether that be the stock market or real estate or municipal bonds. We know they're buying up the yazoo right now so that all local governments don't default. This is totally crazy. So it's possible they could push the stock market back up by printing never ending amounts of money. I mean, the stock market in Zimbabwe was going way up, right? I mean, you couldn't buy a piece of bread with $100 trillion, but hey, the stock market went up, so that a lot of good that does us. But no, I mean, it's possible they'll push the stock market back up, but that doesn't actually solve the fundamental problem, which is our currency is being destroyed. The American people are having their savings robbed from them to pay for bailouts to bankers and to mega corporations and to international bankers. So, I think this needs to be viewed as what it is, and that is one of the largest heists in the history of mankind. This is a looting operation. It's no
Yes.
different than if they came
Yes.
into your house with a shotgun and emptied out your safe. That's function what they're doing, just minus the violence. They're just doing it by deception, and we need to call them out on it.
I couldn't have put it better. I mean, that's exactly what I've been thinking, where again, wanting to be considerate of people who are physically affected. But yeah, it just feels like, wow, a lot of money flew out there. And I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, as you're talking, I'm wondering, like, I was actually thinking, who would be more appropriate for the next Fed chairman between Bernie Madoff or some of the Enron guys with what they're running? I mean, it's insane. And I'm glad you mentioned that SPV. I actually had a guest on my show about 2 or 3 months ago that said that basically Trump had a plan and that he was going to basically revoke the Fed's charter and bring it back under control of the Treasury, which now you could say metaphorically has that distinction been gone a long time. I mean, they sit there and fight about the Fed's independence, yet everybody wants lower interest rates. Everybody wants to print more money and push the bubble off until later. But it's I don't, there has not, I've not seen a formal announcement, but I've read a lot about that SPV and I've heard a lot of commentary, and I also realize, like, I don't know, because we get the CNBC and Wall Street Journal headlines, not really the most accurate barometer of what's really going on. But I hear a lot of people talking about that more and more. Maybe it's a matter of semantics, but what are you hearing on that?
I've heard that a lot too, Chris, but unfortunately, I haven't seen any evidence yet. And, I think, first of all, we need to be clear. The president doesn't have the authority to abolish the Fed or to revoke its charter. The Federal Reserve was created by an act of Congress. And, I would love to see the president move against that and use all of his constitutional powers to shut down the Fed. But step one would be to explain to the American people why that's necessary. Now, I know Trump has some level of understanding about this. During the 2016 campaign, he talked about how the Federal Reserve was manipulating interest rates, juicing the stock market to benefit Obama. Trump has openly and repeatedly talked about how it would be better to go back to a gold standard rather than allow this unelected central planning committee to
Do you
decide what the
think
price of
they're
money ought to
planning
be.
do you think they're planning a reset right now?
I don't know. I don't think that this idea that Trump is going to step in and save the day. I haven't seen the evidence to support that, Chris. We'll put it that way. What I have seen is the globalists and the deep state mega bankers going full speed ahead, trying to pursue their agenda. So let me give you an example. And I talked about this in my article on coronavirus and the economy in the special issue of the New American, which, by the way, is available for free. If you go to thenewamerican.com, you can get a PDF version of that magazine totally for free. You can read all the articles
And
in
you
there.
could even check in the description button below because we'll have that link there for you.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. And so one of the things I did was I went over to the IMF's website and looked at the press releases they're putting out. And they have this Bulgarian, Kristalina Georgieva, running the IMF now. And she's openly saying in press releases, hey, we're going to be injecting billions. At first she said 50 billion, and later she threw out numbers like $1 trillion US dollars worth of so-called special drawing rights. And
Mhm.
so, 99 out of 100 people on the planet never even heard that term. I didn't learn that in college. I didn't learn that in high school. I don't even know what that means. Well, I'll tell you what it means. The IMF is being groomed to become the global Federal Reserve. And they've been doing this openly for the last 10 years at least. We did a cover story in the
Mhm.
New American in 2010. And the special drawing rights are the proto-global currency. And so you have a situation now where the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is openly boasting about the fact that it is injecting global liquidity into the world economy through the creation of these special drawing rights. What they're doing is they're stealing value from people who own US dollars, British pounds, euros, yen, Chinese renminbi, and all the other currencies that make up the basket of currencies under the SDR. They're hijacking money. They're stealing money from all the people who are holding those currencies, and they're floating out these special drawing rights. They're loaning them and giving them to national governments to try to deal with this coronavirus. So what they are doing, I don't know if they're trying to abolish the Fed. To the extent that they do that, it's only because I think they're making way for the global currency to come in. But what's happening here is they are moving now in the direction of sidelining the US dollar as the global reserve currency and replacing that with the special drawing rights. Whether that'll come as a result of this crisis or whether we'll have to wait till the next one or the next one after that, I can't say, but that's the direction they're moving in. You don't have to believe me. Go to the IMF's website, look at the press releases that they're putting out, look at the quotes that Georgieva is making, and you'll see this is exactly what's happening. And I don't think a knight in shining armor is going to rush in to save us from the Federal Reserve at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, a big part of the channel and why I started it, I've seen silver, gold as well as the knight in shining armor that we can use ourselves. Obviously, the last 9 years, while we've seen hyperinflation go on, gold and silver, it had been down for a while. Gold is really, it's interesting. Once we got through to hit 1750, which is the high since 2011, I mean, we're not far off. Plus, with a lot of the folks that I talk to in the gold and silver space and the research I do indicates to me, I mean, we hear these liquidity warnings from the LBMA. They're playing a Three Stooges routine on like, well, the gold bar's in London. No, it's in New York. But perhaps even more significantly, right now I have a partnership with a precious metals dealer. We're happy to pay over spot for metal. So, I mean, it's not, we don't have a case where it's like the dealers are saying, all right, if you want to buy silver, it's $25. And if you sell it back, we'll give you a dime under spot. Dealers are paying over spot. There's a rumor that I keep hearing that the mint may be trying to pay 50 cents over spot. So I'm wondering if we're seeing this paper gold, paper silver scheme where I hear as many as 500 to 1 paper claims for each physical ounce could be unraveling, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And this is another subject that I've actually written on very extensively. And I wrote an article about this during the last crisis, and I hope people will go back and read it because it's even more relevant today probably than it was back then. It's called Fed Manipulations in the Crosshairs, and that's over at thenewamerican.com. And I was exposing the Federal Reserve's manipulation of all these different markets. And at the time, the Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, the SIGTARP, said the Federal Reserve had created something like $27 trillion during the crisis. And one of the things they were doing with that money was manipulating the prices of gold and silver. I think we're seeing that all over again in an even more significant way. And I think that's how they've managed to keep spot prices down so low. In fact, in our local area here, I was calling around to the local gold and silver dealers. They were selling silver, at $30 per ounce, which is double the spot price. Okay. And they were offering to buy it for significantly more than the spot price. So obviously now the wheels are coming off this lie, this manipulation of the gold and silver prices. I know you're the real expert on that. But I think we could see a breakout in the price of gold and silver, even as measured in Federal Reserve notes, because I don't think they're going to be able to manipulate it forever. At some point, market fundamentals are going to become so obvious that all the manipulation in the world won't cut it. And at that point, everybody who's holding paper gold, or everybody who thinks they're holding paper gold, it's going to be like musical chairs. A lot of people are going to be ending up without a chair, and a lot of people are going to be very upset. But I think that's what's coming, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I thought back when I got into this in 2009. I didn't set out it wasn't like I had a gold bar in my crib or some silver fetish that, but it just, in fact, similar to what Dr. Mark Skidmore says, where it's like when I first saw this, I was like, no, there's no way that all these guys that I was working around with Wall Street at the time, could be missed. I'm like, there's no way I could see this and but it's really like I've spent the past 10 years trying to find if there's some other way other than eventually someone shows up for their metal and there's an inability to deliver, which a lot of us have studied and thought is happening, and it's appears to be happening now. So we'll see. Alex, really the only problem I see here is that I have so many other questions I would love to ask you because you have so much great stuff, but Fortunately, folks at home, Alex has been kind enough, along with the New American, to write it all down for everyone. Alex, this is an incredible interview. Let folks know how they can get more of you.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me on the program, Chris. It's always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to interviewing you soon about your upcoming book on gold and silver. I'm really looking forward to that. It's such an important topic. If people want to read more about these things we've been talking about, go to thenewamerican.com. You can follow me on social media. My Twitter handle is AlexNewman_JOU. And on Facebook, as long as Facebook lets me be there, it's AlexJNewman86. And I do hope people will, send me email if you have any questions. Follow me on social media. I love to talk to people. And thanks again for having me on the program, Chris. It's always such a pleasure, and very much looking forward to when I get to talk to you about your gold and silver price manipulation book. That's going to be exciting. So.
Well, I sure appreciate that. I wrote down all those links you mentioned. We'll get them in the description below. So all these things, folks, you can follow up with. Best part, Alex, I love is that people don't have to take your opinion for it. They don't have to take my opinion for it. The stuff is out there. The guys running the show, making the rules, they leave it, and we just go and document it. And I sure appreciate the way you do it. So thank you, my friend. Folks, hit the subscribe button and notification bell. So hopefully, Alex, will have you back on again soon, and you can hear from him again.
Thanks so much, Chris.
So there is part 2 of my interview with Alex. Again, some pretty fascinating things that he shared. We'll look forward to catching up with Alex throughout the year. And if you'd like some more information on that book that he mentioned that I am writing, well, we got you covered.